Hey all, welcome back to the Restorantine series where I interview members, community leaders, and friends of Restore to hear about their experiences during the ongoing COVID lockdown. Now, this week I wanted to talk to somebody who had a similar experience to me. I wanted to find, is there anybody out there who kind of understands what I'm feeling this week and what I'm going through? And so after a search of everybody that I knew in the entire community, I finally settled on my wife. So today I'm going to have a conversation with Christi, and you're going to get a little window into what our house has been like and what our life has been like. And I hope that it resonates with you, that we're experiencing a lot of what you are. And so I hope you find this helpful, and I hope you enjoy this conversation.
I'm ready.
Good, because I'm telling you, now we're starting.
Okay.
You like my background?
Yeah, I love it.
This is Chris's background that he always uses during staff meetings, so I have to give him credit since I stole it from him.
Big fan of anything that has to do with a good place. Makes
and it
me
feels very
laugh.
feels very appropriate. It's like that everything is fine when in reality you're in hell.
If people haven't watched the show, they might be confused, but
this is our promo. If you have some time on your hands, can go ahead and watch The Good Place.
Exactly.
So thanks for joining me on this video chat from different spots in our own house.
I thought we should explain that. I was like, no, we're not quarantined in separate places. I am in the family room. You are in the basement office.
That's right. Like Chris Cuomo. Nailing it.
Exactly.
So here was my intro was that I wanted to talk to somebody who would understand what I was going through. And the only person that would really understand was you, since we live in the same house and have had the same experience. So the first thing that I thought we'd talk about is how our experience has changed week to week. So I'm really asking you that question. Like, you know, how has our experience changed? Like, how do we feel differently this week than we did week one when it felt like an extended snow day?
Oh, you mean like over the course of the last, I guess, what are we on, week 5 now?
Or 6, yeah, hard to say.
So not just, not like pre-quarantine normal.
You should also state you don't have COVID because you're coughing a lot.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Probably not. I have had a cold, but no, I'm sorry. I have my tea. Hopefully that'll make it better. No, week like 1 of quarantine to week 5 of quarantine. I mean, you know, first week, I think the interesting thing is I feel like you could kind of track this even just by watching social media, how everyone's responding. And I don't think that our response has been too different from the general public. You know, week 1, I remember, you'll remember this, the very first night that we knew school was probably going to be canceled. I was like, you know, I'm ready for it. I'm going to go out to the grocery store. And I did like 2 major shopping trips, was all prepared, stayed up late, you know, had our stash. And I think we were just kind of, you know, ready to take on the challenge, and kind of in like early spring break way. And I think now by week 5, all of that sort of initial, you know, like the adrenaline rush that I think that was kind of getting us by is kind of gone. So I feel like now the reality is settling in. Maybe stuff that we just sort of, you know, ignored for the time being it's kind of resurfaced. You know, once that just kind of initial, hey, we can get through this is gone, and you realize this is going to be longer term, I think it's just a totally different set of emotions now at this point. Kind of depressing, right? A little bit.
Well, we talked about this morning, like the stages of grief, you know, how you go from, you know, basically you're getting to this point of like, okay, this is where we are now, and just trying to deal with, you know, all right, what does it mean that we might not have vacations in the summer? We really don't know. We don't know where this is going to end up. But also, just like you said this morning, you were like, oh, guess what day it is? And I was like, I have no clue what you're talking about. And you're like,
you thought I was going to like have something really exciting, and no, it was just another day in quarantine.
Right.
I had no surprises.
Well, like, I think another question I want to talk about, because I haven't really talked to anybody about this, but the the kids' experience of quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how have you seen the kids deal with it based on their personality? Like, what are some different, I mean, 6 kids, every single one of them has a different personality.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the hardest things to navigate, really. You know, I think the kids have gone through the same thing we have a little bit, and you've got those stages of grief where, first you're kind of denying, like, oh well, like nothing's really bad. We can kind of do online learning for a little bit. And that was initially, I think, really, really hard for the kids. Though that first like week or two transition to online learning, not seeing their friends, everything was so different, and they didn't know how to figure out why. Then they kind of got used to that, but even now, 5 weeks in, I'm still seeing some of those same emotions coming up. And we've got, with some of our, let's go from the bottom up, right? We've got Judah, who's 3. Our youngest toddler, there's really no way to put into words to him what the heck is going on. I actually think that at this point, he has transitioned the best because he has no broader sense of doom and gloom. It's just more like he had to adjust to not being able to go to playgrounds, not go to, Bible study, his Bible study play that he did, not going to daycare. But then once he transitioned, I think the broadest scope of everything is, just another day he gets to play with his dog. I think he's actually kind of done the best.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, it's kind of like his life got better. I mean, in a certain way, I mean, obviously there's those things that he misses, but overall, all of a sudden he's got playmates at the house 24/7 that weren't there as frequently before.
Now, in some ways, he's our hardest because he's a toddler, and the toddler energy is difficult when you're both trying to work from home. But for him, I actually feel like he's transitioned well at this point. Then we have 2 second graders that are just turned 8, and I'll just use the example, well, first of all, there's been a couple days where we just see children sprawled out crying on the floor, and there's just not much you can do, not much you can do with that other than just kind of let them feel those emotions. And we had another night like that. I kind of thought we were over that hump where it's like, okay, they've emotionally dealt with it. And then last night, one of our girls was just in tears at bedtime, didn't know if she was tired, just had no idea what she was feeling. And I was just kind of like, I get it. I understand. Like, we're all struggling. So we just kind of snuggled a little bit longer, and I just kind of let her cry, and and that's how it was. And then we've got the bigger kids who, they're so independent. They've mostly done really, really well. But for them, we have just a lot more bickering in the house. When you've got kids on top of kids and parents on top of people and everything, there's just like the battleground for fighting. It's just there.
Yeah, like they just get bored and they're like, what can I do to entertain myself? And then they just look across the room and they're like, I'll just make fun of you.
Oh, I'll just pick on you. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads to another thing we were talking about, which was discipline. And because I think I always want to come down really hard, and just be like, get out, like go to your room, whatever it might be. And we've kind of had to work through that a little bit because
we sort of,
because everybody's dealing with stuff that they don't really understand.
Yeah. That's really hard. And I think that what we're trying to navigate and learn is discipline looks totally different when you're dealing with crisis. I mean, we're all dealing with crisis right now. So this isn't things are normal. We expect more of you, or, you're able to perform more, do better, or, nothing, all of that stuff is just sort of out the window. Not that we've thrown out routines, not that we've thrown out the fact that they need to have a good bedtime. There's some things that that you and me still both need just for your own like personal health and well-being. Those things, that's not where you loosen up. But I feel like where we've had to loosen up is just, some of them, they're acting out now, and even some of their teasing. It's not because it's literally all just a byproduct of this kind of crisis mode that we're all operating in. They don't get to see their friends. They don't get to go out. All those normal things that kind of, maybe kept us sane and kept them sane. You're dealing with the exact same thing. So I think that the discipline part has been, it's just a lot more grace for what they're dealing with. Like I keep wanting to get frustrated if they're melting down over homework or if they're teasing one another. And I feel like both of us have had to just pause more and just be like, okay, what are they really feeling? Like, what's really going on? And sometimes I don't think we know how to identify it. So there's just a lot more space for, making room for those feelings and,
Yeah,
not
that's the
coming
thing. I
down
mean,
as hard.
even when we feel something as adults, hopefully mature adults, most of what you feel is like, I don't know what this is. I can't put my finger on why I'm sad or why I'm angry. There's nothing that happened. That's just the way I feel today. And
Yeah.
we can't even identify that and work through that as adults. And so I think we've seen that a lot in them, where you're like, why are you so cranky today? You went to bed at a good time last night and you woke up this morning and the first thing you did was yell at me for no reason at all. And you just go, because they don't know either. They don't, because it's so different.
Well, and what's kind of important to distinguish maybe is that, we're not even talking about personal grief. Like, we haven't even had somebody personally that's died. We're just talking about the collective grief of where we're at as a society right now. Just the loss of just the normalcy. For people that have actually been directly affected, I'm sure it's even compounded more, but we're just dealing with the difference, and that's hard. That's hard enough. That's hard for the kids. They haven't personally been affected in like in a lost way, but this is just that loss of normalcy in and of itself is just very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm. And they've talked about the loss of, not knowing if they're going to be back at school this year. One of them just said that the other day of like, I'm really sad if this is the way that my school year ends. So I think part of that place where we're at of acceptance of like, hey, this is our reality, at least for the time being, is that actual grief. I think that we're experiencing actual grief right now because you've gotten through all the stages. Now you've accepted that this is the reality and you're learning to live within that, but it just looks so different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I was surprised when that particular kid said that, because up until then, one of our older children hadn't really expressed too much like really outward emotion. But I was just kind of preparing the kids, like, just so you know, school hasn't called it, but we might not return. Like, I think it's just better to accept that reality now. And yeah, that child was just like, that makes me really sad. I don't want to end my year at home. And I really, honestly, for the first time, just felt so just sad thinking about that reality for our kids. Like, seeing, they've kind of been okay, some of the bigger ones, but just kind of hearing her express it that way, it's tough.
Yeah, I was going to ask about challenges, but I think we've kind of covered that, some of the challenges we face with the kids. But I also wanted to think about some of the positives that we've had during this time, because I think it is helpful to consider we've lost. Huh? Nothing.
And then nothing's been positive.
Well, no, I mean, or there's things we've tried to do to find fun in the midst of it, right? Like, I mean, we still have our camper set up in the driveway, which was like, the kids haven't slept in it in like a week, but during spring break, we would go out there every night.
Yeah, I'm joking. It's funny because I feel like usually I like having fun. We like having fun. We like doing those fun things. So I think we've actually had to incorporate, more of that. Someone had asked, like, on social media, what do you do to keep your kids from fighting? And I was like, I don't have any quick solution. What I feel like we've done collectively as a family is just try to make opportunities to laugh together, still enjoy life. We've had to be more intentional. So what Jeremy is referring to is for spring break. We had spring break 2 weeks ago, and usually we might travel somewhere or go somewhere, and obviously no one can do that. So right now our camper is, we put up our pop-up in our driveway, and the kids slept there almost every night over spring break. So we got in our first camping trip. It just was, right outside the door. It just looked a little different.
And it was so cold
but it was
it was so cold outside that I went through 3 tanks of propane just to keep it heated.
But it was an outlet for the kids. And, some other things we've done is there's this online game, Quiplash. We play with the kids every night. They get to, I don't even know what to compare it to, but they kind of get to answer questions and, vote on.
It's a little bit like apples to apples, I think. But
yeah. Basically an apples to apples.
But you come up with the answer. It's not a card.
Right. And then, and then like, you put on AFE the other night and the kids were cracking up so loud. It was, I don't know.
That was, and I was going to say, like, one of the other ones for me is, we do still have dinner as a family every night, and there's nothing competing with that time. So there's really no excuse to not do that and sit around the table.
Yeah.
But I also thought, of, and maybe I'll like splice that video in here somehow of the dog, jumping over all the kids. And it was like, all of a sudden there's these little moments where they actually are getting along, and you're like, what is going on here? Like they're all laughing together, and they're, not at each other's throats. And so I think those moments are like seem fewer than I would want, but they do exist. And I think you just have to, like, I don't know, look for them when you see them.
Yeah, and create opportunities for them. Like I think it's, sometimes even as parents, like we're just so exhausted by the end of the day, right? Like we don't want to coordinate and everything. And certainly I'm not advocates of just entertain your kids all the time. But I do think that it's like, it does help to just be like, we're going to watch a funny movie together. We're going to do, I've seen friends that have done, you set up a movie night with popcorn and make signs, or, just like create those opportunities to try to have your kids have fun together and play, because really it is, the more they're bored, I feel like the more they're at each other. So not that you need to be the fun factory, but certainly there is positives. There are good things that you can do and take advantage of right now. And for us, you mentioned family dinner. That's been one of the best things we've had. I don't want anyone to think we're Norman Rockwell painting. Half the time our kids are yelling at each other.
Oh no, I mean it's yeah, like it's like the rare. I think the other night we actually had a dinner they all liked. Yeah. So nobody was complaining about like, why would you feed me this, whatever. Yeah. And they were all sitting around the table, and it was like, I was like, okay, there it is. We did it. It was like for like 2 seconds, and then it was chaos. Somebody got
They're
sent
all
to the
happy
bedroom.
with one another for a second. They're not kicking each other under the table or whatever.
Yeah, I wish I remembered what the meal was, because I'm like, maybe we just have to eat that every night, whatever it was.
They all like spaghetti, meatballs, and garlic bread, don't they? I mean, was that it?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, maybe not. But we still do family. We have a Bible, a kid's Bible storybook. It's not like this in-depth, difficult devotion. We've kind of given up on that idea with so many kids. It kind of hits everybody at every level. It's a cute Bible story with pictures and a prayer at the end. And we've been really consistent at the kids still reading that every night. On a good night where they're not super fighting, we'll do, a high version of high and lows. Usually mommy is forcing that. Daddy's like, I'm ready to be done with dinner.
I'm done. Yeah. I'm like, hey, we did it. We got food down everyone's throat. Now everyone
but
disperse.
We haven't done highs and lows yet.
Yeah. Well, you should explain what highs and lows is.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I feel like
basically everybody says one good thing from the day that was their high, and one bad thing from the day that was their low.
One high and one low. Yeah, and if anyone is going to try this with your family, we have added the rule that your low may not include somebody else. So you may not use this to be like, my low was when so-and-so did this to me, because that happens.
Well, that's because I was the first one to violate it, because you're like, what's your low today? And I was like, my low is how none of you keep this house clean. And you were like, you can't blame it on other people.
I was like, that's not how we do a low. Thank you.
Right. It was, I was like trying to shame everyone into behaving. Well, I definitely, I appreciate you making time for this interview in this conversation.
Are we at 15 minutes?
Yeah, we're at our time limit. So we can keep talking, but it's,
did it.
Yeah, we did it. So hopefully I said in the intro, I hope that like by talking about our experience a little bit, other people will feel like, okay, I'm normal, or I'm feeling some of the same things or whatever. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, all going through the same stuff, just different versions of it.
Yep. But all right. Well, I guess I'll see you in the kitchen.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Sounds good. Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed getting a window into what our life looks like during this time. I hope you saw some of yourself in it. I hope you can resonate with our experiences, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you're enjoying these videos, feel free to share them on Facebook, like them on YouTube, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. And as always, if there's anyone you want me to have a conversation with, please let me know, and I'd be happy to try to set that up. In the meantime, stay safe, stay well, and have a great week.